Coin traders, how we doing? Thanks for joining me for the show again. Looking at ZetaChain ZETA on that ticker. If you're not too familiar with ZetaChain, it is a universal blockchain doing a lot of cross-chain things, which is the future, in my opinion, doing a lot of cross-chain things. So I think Zeta is a great project that's outside of the top 150 right now for crypto. Obviously not financial advice, but if you do follow me on Twitter, you'll probably see me talking about Zeta a decent amount. So kind of came onto the scene right at the tail end of the fall and early winter pump here, and that's kind of why we were looking at a peak coming in for ZetaChain pretty much in the middle of February, and then obviously tapering off from there a bunch, especially it being a new, relatively unknown project and unlocks and things like that. But did put in our bottom right now, looking at a low for ZetaChain of 34.2 cents. After that, did get into a little bit of a nice trend reversal where we actually did see a nice break of the 50-period EMA, and we are on the 2-day chart. And I do think that the 2-day is a little bit more accurate based on the setups and what we're looking at right now. But anyway, more than less, did have a little bit of a consolidation now on the current setup for the most recent several 2-day candles, looking at a very nice breakout. And that's what's so significant about this setup right now. So if we actually look at the pullback, and we did have a pretty substantial pullback here from the high down to the bottom, looking at almost 90%. So basically went through a full bear market here just from February all the way down to August. So looking at a nice opportunity for potential growth and gains here. Very nice setup, and especially now seeing confirmation signals, a back test and a breakout now. Very good signs here coming in for this chart. And so do want to talk about first how we did look at these exponential moving averages being pretty far apart as we did see the price start to slip. And that's kind of why we always know that when the price is above the exponential moving averages, price of path of least resistance is to the upside, and conversely, when it's on the downside, we do have a little bit more of that opportunity to the downside. So that's why it is so significant right now over the last period where we do have a flipping of these exponential moving averages as well as these exponential moving averages getting tight. Because when they go from such big gaps to ultimately being very close, we do know that a reversal is coming here in that instance, which is exactly what we're looking at right now. So do want to look at the current setup, and obviously after resisting in between the 12 and 26, had that very nice flip, had a little bit of period of sideways, not necessarily too worried about all this because like we say, as long as the gap between all these exponential moving averages is tightening, the tighter it does get, the more that it's not necessarily as accurate for support or resistance because it is easier for price to fluctuate sideways on top or below of those exponential moving averages. Now, the other really good thing to look at is that we are starting to get a cross of these exponential moving averages, and especially after blowing back above it, a very nice back test of this level, confirming these big levels. So if we go ahead and zoom in on the current 2-day candle, which closes in just under 3 hours, we can see this big lower shadow here. So we did have a lot of price wicking, but bulls have been buying up that dip and confirming this closing level of support. So as long as we do maintain closing support on top of these exponential moving averages, very good sign, especially since we have gotten that back test and that confirmation now that this is a very relevant support guide. So after a very nice bullish candle that knocks out 3 bearish candles, especially with follow through, that's exactly a good sign. A strong move and setup in that instance is pulling back, confirming the previous resistances. And we do have several in this instance to look at. First, do want to look at a price level of previous resistance now coming in as that support just below the 70-cent line. So if we go ahead and look left, look at all these wicks that couldn't get above and hold a close on top of the 70-cent line. So we did confirm it as resistance for about a week before pulling back, setting that higher low compared to the previous low at 51.47 here. And then in that instance, we did have our very nice bullish upside candle. A lot of that Trump pup coming in, especially with the rest of crypto, to see that very nice bullish breakout. And this back test, always essential, confirming not only previous price level resistance, exponential moving average resistance as well. And then if we go ahead and zoom out additionally, we can also see how this actually lined up as a downtrend resistance line that we're now back testing and providing support. So previous resistance, blew through it, back tested it, confirming it as support now, especially seeing the current candle with a very nice bullish hammer, showing that follow through with this long lower shadow, confirming all support on top of this previous resistance level. So a lot of support base below it, and we should expect a little bit more upside from here. Obviously, barring some sort of catalyst or a major pullback across crypto, could obviously see it pull back in that instance because overall, we're still very tied to the rest of the crypto space, especially when we do see coins that are a little bit smaller in market cap and a little bit lower on the crypto top charts. Now, I want to look at a technical indicator really quick, the RSI Relative Strength Index, just to talk about this overall chart setup, because when we look at this 2-day and we see that we have been oversold, finally starting to change this trend where we're seeing higher highs and higher lows now being put in for this RSI, with the majority of the RSI trending on top of this exponential moving average for this 2-day RSI. So this is really significant because if we actually look specifically at the chart, not necessarily too much upside for what we expect out of this type of RSI, but we know that this does mean that this pattern and strength is growing. So that's why we are expecting a little bit more of that nice bullish upside, especially after such big retracement this time, especially since the launch here. Now, that doesn't mean we're just going to shoot straight up vertical, and a lot to be looking at, especially because we have a pretty significant resistance trend line now. We have been looking at a nice bullish trend line that we've broken and sitting on top of, but we are looking at this trend line to the upside that also needs to break. Realistically, we're not sure when it would happen. As long as we do still maintain price support on top of the exponential moving average, we know that, like we said, trend is to the upside and path of least resistance is to the upside as well. But looking at this chart, obviously getting stuck up at it right now, looking left even more, 2 tests of this level on this bounce coming off of the low had it as well. And then prior to that, also had it as a big point of support. So very relevant trend line. It is going to stay relevant until it breaks. But like we said, we are planning on breaking a bullish from it and then ultimately hoping that that would flip into that support level as well before seeing the next leg of upside. Price level resistance too, though, looking at several key things because we do have a price level resistance up to just shy of the 90 cent at about 87.95. Obviously looking left, big point of resistance here on the way down. And so although that's the upper end, we're actually looking at a pretty significant price level resistance just by the 77.89 cent level. And so on the recent move, we did get stuck up previously just below the 90 cent, but blew back down support. So couldn't hold that level as support despite it being big resistance that we have blown through as well as previous support. So not necessarily as relevant just because it was such a quick move and flush, and that's why the 90 cent is a little bit more resistive in that instance. But we know that from 78 cents all the way up until about 87 is going to be a pretty big zone that we're going to have to see flip into support. But once we do break above it and hold a close and print some of these nice 2-day candles on top, we would expect it to be a very nice upside zone to see a lot of that support and allow the price to get pushed even farther to the upside, especially once these exponential moving averages continue to intersect and roll up with this zone as well. Looking at the weekly, a lot of nice things to be looking at here coming off of the bottom. Obviously, on the weekly, we are getting stuck up below the 24-period EMA. Still a very new crypto, so don't even have a 50-period EMA just yet. So that means no, we're not even 52 weeks in, or excuse me, 50 weeks in. 52 would be a year. But nonetheless, still looking at a very nice positive move here because we have this very bullish candle here. Essentially more or less a spinning top with magnitude and an equal distant or magnitude upsize wick as a lower shadow. So this is significant too because if we actually look to the previous nice engulfing a bullish candle and then following that actually had a nice engulfing as well. So couldn't even see a retracement and then immediately these weeks of pullback still couldn't see enough of a pullback to knock out this low. So very nice that the one body of the candle actually completely engulfs this 4-week trading, especially since we did hit a very nice higher low and then a little bit more bullish upside from there. So currently too, also looking at very nice weekly closing support at 59. Obviously up overhead, we do have the 24-period EMA, but upside too, still looking at almost 80 cents. So big period of current resistance on the candles. Looking to the left, a little bit more of a resistive point and then a supportive point before breaking that. The good news is that once we break that, there's not really a significant price level of resistance coming up overhead until about 116. So assuming we do break some of these shorter term resistance levels, then if we do look at some upside moves here, we would be looking at a potential gain and rally to the upside of about 57%. So if we actually turn on volume profile, visible range, VPVR, look over here to the right, you can see that the next big point of mass is exactly at that level of about 1.25. From the current levels, though, as you can see, we're actually above most of the mass for price trading on this chart. So should see a lot of support pretty much all the way down to at the very lowest point, about the 70 cent level. But like we said, we do expect a lot more support to be coming in on top of that. And if we actually turn off VPVR and talk about these exponential moving averages a little bit more, you can see that right now the current weekly is starting to defend the 12-period EMA as we have done multiple times before. So Would love to see the current candle close, defend that level, and then see more follow through to break this the 26 period EMA. And for the current candle, we're looking at that coming in at 88.42 cents. We look at the RSI2 on this weekly. You can see we're also in an uptrend setting with the RSI on top of this moving average as well, putting in higher lows for RSI and seeing this trend to the upside. So plenty of room for growth for this weekly RSI to actually extend up into the overbought levels above the 70 line. And obviously with that would be much higher prices as well. Now, did want to cover this a little bit earlier, but we did have a big announcement for ZetaChain earlier in the week that we were seeing a partnership get announced with Google Cloud to actually be a validator and support its universal blockchain and promote the Web3 space. So this is a pretty good and bullish partnership and announcement as well, in my opinion. It should get a lot more exposure, especially since ZetaChain is a universal blockchain and multi-chain, and I do think that multi-chain is going to end up being the future a little bit more, just because as we do have more and more great blockchains on their own, especially L1 blockchains, we do need a little bit more integration, and obviously being able to tie those all together is going to be a very good thing. And I have used its functionality before, mostly switching tokens and things like that. So great features, great product, and overall just really excited about all of these positive news announcements, as well as a great chart setup. So like we mentioned, ZetaChain is coming in below or just outside of the top 150. So currently ranked 154 right now, just below all of these meme coins and stable coins. So should have plenty of potential and upside movement right now. Market cap 382 million. So plenty of upside, even with a 10x would be looking at 3.82 billion. And that would put the price at about 740. So very reasonable upside target. Obviously 3.82 billion is still a pretty low market cap for peak euphoria in a great blockchain in the market space. So even with a little bit more upside, we could multiply that probably by 3 or 4. So probably into the upper teens or low 20s, I think would be a very nice upside price target for ZetaChain. Obviously, it's a little bit exciting and moon boyish, but obviously I think the potential's there. And especially if we do see a lot more multi-chain things come in, especially with the adoption and growth of Web3, this could be a very, very good nice chart setup, as well as a very good project for the future of crypto. Flipping down into the daily chart now, talking about this really quick before we wrap up. Specifically, just want to look at a few price levels, most notably looking at just shy of 0.75, so 7463. And what's significant about that is the current level is starting to test it, but we know that it has been very resistive in the past. So that's why it is essential to get back on top of this line and then actually confirm it as that support once again, topping out these resistance. So huge opportunity for a nice setup. But otherwise, we would still maintain more or less in this sideways chop pattern that we have been at basically since the end of August, the start of August, when we actually hit our low here. So overall, great potential and a very nice setup, especially for the longer term here. So this is a very nice swing and longer term play and hold. Obviously not financial advice, but just my thoughts and opinions on ZetaChain. Hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. If you do have any other thoughts, questions, comments, issues, disagreements, all that fun stuff, do let me know and drop a note down in the comment sections below, or feel free to reach out and chat over on Twitter at coin_trades is the handle. Looking forward to chatting with everyone over there. But otherwise, that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for the show right now on ZetaChain ZETA on that ticker. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll catch you back in the next video.